Deep in a New Orleans cemetery, a groundskeeper waits in his shed. The fog is thick and midnight has passed. He knows what comes at this hour. The old clock on the wall finally strikes. Woods Sanji Juyumphan, the hour he dreads more than any other.
11 years. 11 years since I broke the rule, and it still comes every single night.
Footsteps sound on the gravel path. Slow, deliberate, unmistakable. At the cemetery gate, a tall figure in a long dark coat materializes out of the fog.
There it is, every night, exactly 3:14. It never misses.
The shape passes through the locked iron gate as if it were nothing but air.
Here it comes. That voice. It will say the same thing it always does.
Thank you for remembering me, son.
It turns and walks away into the fog, but tomorrow night it will be back. It always returns, back in his shed. Samuel opens the leather ledger, the book that has governed his family for generations. In 1898, his great-grandfather penned 6 rules into this very ledger. Every Reeves groundskeeper has followed them without question. Rule 1. The tombs talk among themselves. Do not transcribe what you hear.
Every man in my family has turned these pages. Not one has ever broken a rule.
Rule 2. No cardinal grave is ever to be tended after dusk. The rules are not suggestions. They were written in blood and fear, passed down from a time when the cemetery was far less forgiving. Breaking even one, the old writings warned, could unleash something that the living could never contain. Samuel received the ledger from his father Joseph on his 21st birthday, the same day he took the oath of groundskeeping.
My father used to say, the cemetery protects us as long as we protect its rules.
But there is one rule Samuel did break, and he has been paying for it ever since. Rule 3. Never dig near a crypt without knocking 3 times. The ground remembers the disturbed. Rule 4. Never read epitaphs aloud after dark. The dead might mistake it for an invitation, but the rule spoken of in whispers was Rule 1. A transcript of tomb talk once broke a priest's mind. Yet the rule every groundskeeper feared second most was the cardinal tomb. Cursed since 1853, something restless clings to it. A green glow still oozes from a cracked door, a spectral warning that has never faded. In 1941, Samuel's great-uncle broke that rule at dusk. He was found catatonic by dawn. The warning sign was driven into the earth that very morning. No one has tended the plot after sunset since. Samuel memorized every rule. They were his inheritance, his family's sacred burden. But one night, he forgot, or perhaps he didn't believe. Not until he heard his father's voice calling from the fog. 11 years ago, on his first solo night, Samuel broke Rule 6, and the shape came to collect what was owed. The cardinal tomb stands in the oldest section, its warning a permanent scar on the stone. His father once told him of Eli Reeves, a groundskeeper in 1945. Eli broke the rule at dusk. He never believed the warnings. They found him at dawn, eyes torn from their sockets, his mouth locked in a silent scream. His body lay beside the cardinal plot, the stone door ajar, green mist curling out. The sign was driven in the next morning. It remains there to this day. In the ledger, his great-grandfather scribbled in the margin, Eli's eyes were not taken. They were traded.
When I was a boy, my father made me swear never to go near that tomb after dark.
Still, the green glow pulses, the curse unbroken. That tomb never forgets a debt, but Samuel broke a different rule. His mistake was far more personal. Its consequence waited 11 years. The old clock reads 3:13. Samuel's knuckles are bone white against the cot frame.
Every night, it comes. I've lost count of the times I've heard that voice. Dad, I swear I didn't mean to. I thought it was you outside that night.
The tools of his trade stand idle. He cannot work while the specter walks.
I've read every page of the ledger. There's no undoing what I did.
His father's photograph is a constant reminder of the price yet unpaid. For 11 years, Samuel has endured the visits, waiting for the debt to fall due. But the debt was not his to pay. It belonged to the name he spoke. The first time he heard his father's voice in the fog was the night he doomed him. It began on the 14th of August, 2013, his first summer alone. In August 2013, Samuel's father, Joseph, had finally retired, leaving the cemetery to its fourth groundskeeper. The cemetery that night felt immense, the oaks dripping Spanish moss like silent witnesses to his first solo watch.
I'd waited for this day since I was a kid, but now that it's here, my hands won't stop sweating.
The shed, once lively with his father's voice, now held only the creak of old timber and the smell of damp earth. Before bed, he traced his finger over every page of the ledger, reciting the rules under his breath. Rule 6 was the one he'd always found hardest to believe, a bedtime story. He'd once called it.
Walk the rows at 3 a.m., expecting to be greeted by name. Yeah, right. What is this? A ghost novel.
He locked the main gate at 10, the clank of the padlock echoing through the stone city of the dead. At midnight, the first tendrils of fog slunk between the tombs, and the air grew cold as grave soil. Samuel fell into a restless sleep, the kind that makes a man mistake a dream for a threat. At 3:14, the old clock's chime didn't wake him. The silence that followed did. Gravel crunched outside, slow and heavy, like boots on a deliberate march.
I was dreaming of Dad. The sound pulled me halfway out of it. Who else could it be? The old man probably couldn't sleep, came down to check on me.
The footsteps halted right outside the shed door. A heavy stillness fell.
Joseph, that you? I knew you couldn't stay away.
The silence that answered was absolute, wrong in a way the young groundskeeper couldn't place. Then the footsteps resumed. They no longer sounded casual. They had purpose, coming directly toward the door.
The gate. I locked the gate. Dad doesn't have a key. That's not my father. That's something else.
Samuel rose from the cot, his bare feet cold on the wooden floor. He crept to the grime-caked window. Through the fog, a tall figure stood motionless on the path, its coat long and dark, no face visible.
The gate, I locked it with my own hands. Nothing can get in, nothing.
The shape turned its blank head toward the shed, and without a sound, it began to walk.
Don't move. Don't breathe. If it doesn't hear me, maybe it'll go away.
Gravel crunched under invisible boots, each step deliberate, each step closer.
It knows exactly where I am. It's done this before, maybe 100 times before.
The shape stopped at the shed door. For 3 heartbeats, all was silent.
Go away, please. Just go away. I didn't mean it.
Then the latch clicked. The door swung inward, and the faceless thing stepped across the threshold. The shape loomed, coat dripping grave dew. Its face was smooth, pale flesh over a skull.
It doesn't have eyes. How can it see me? How can it know where I am?
It bent forward, the blank surface hovering inches from Samuel's own face.
Thank you for remembering me, son.
That's my father's voice. Every inflection, every tone. It's him. It can't be him.
The words hung in the cold air, and then the shape straightened.
He's dead. It killed him and wore his voice. Or maybe it always had his voice. I don't know which is worse.
Without another sound, it turned and walked past the cot, heading for the open door.
I broke the rule. I greeted it. And now it knows my voice. It'll never stop.
It vanished into the fog, leaving Samuel shaking on the floor, the scent of damp wool and old moss lingering. Samuel scrambled for his phone, the screen's glow cutting the dark. His fingers trembled as he dialed.
Dad, pick up. Please be there.
Samuel, son, what's wrong? It's 3 in the morning.
You are alive. Oh God, you are alive, I thought. There was something here. It sounded like you.
Slow down, Samuel. I am at home in bed. Whatever you saw, it wasn't me. Are you hurt?
Samuel didn't answer. He was already staring at the leather ledger on the desk, its ancient pages waiting. He found the page with trembling fingers. The ink was faded, but the words struck like a hammer. Rule 6. Do not greet what walks. Do not look at it. Do not address it by any name.
I greeted it. I called it by my own father's name. I broke the most sacred rule in this cemetery.
He grabbed a pen, and on the page's margin, he wrote the date, the 14th of August, 2013, the first of 4,015 nights. The following night, Samuel did not sleep. He sat rigid on his cot, eyes fixed on the old clock.
Maybe it was a one-time thing, a hallucination, something that only happens once.
At exactly 3:14, the sound of gravel crunching under a deliberate tread shattered the silence.
No, not again. Please, not again.
Through the grimy window, he saw the gate swing open on its own, and the tall shape pass through. It walked the same path as before, its smooth, blank head turning toward the shed as if it could see him.
I know what it's going to say. I know every word. And I can't stop it.
Thank you for remembering me, son.
It stood for a moment, then turned and walked away, swallowed by the fog, as if it had never been. Samuel slumped against the wall. The ritual had begun, and he knew it would never end. Samuel tore through the ledger's margins, searching for anything that might break the vigil. His great-grandfather had left faint scribbles. Pour salt at crossroads, bury a mirror, speak a psalm backward.
I tried them all. Scattered salt at every intersection in the cemetery. The shape walked right over it.
He buried a shard of mirror beneath the gate's hinge. The next night, the figure paused, then stepped over the broken glass without a sound.
I even moved the cardinal plot's headstone 1 inch to the left, thinking the rules were linked. It did nothing.
Nothing worked. The visitor came each night at 3:14, spoke its words, and vanished into the mist. Months bled into years. 4 years, 7 years. Samuel grew gaunt, his eyes hollowed by an unwanted vigil.
My father called less. He was proud I was keeping the cemetery, but I couldn't tell him about the thing that wears his voice.
11 years passed. Joseph grew older, his voice frailer over the phone, but the shape's words never aged, and still, every night, Samuel waited in the shed for the footsteps that always, always, always came. The 14th of August, 2024, the 11th anniversary. Samuel sat in the shed, counting down the minutes. The clock ticked into 3:14, then 3:15. No crunch of gravel, no familiar shadow.
Where is it? Something's wrong. After 11 years, why would it stop now?
The fog lay motionless. The gate remained shut. For the first time in 4,015 nights, the path was empty. Samuel's phone shattered the silence. His mother's voice was tight, barely a whisper. The call was brief. "Samuel, it's your father. He's had a stroke. Come to the hospital now."
Number. It stopped tonight. The shape didn't come. And now, Dad, I did this. I caused this.
He ran to his truck, the ledger left open on the desk. The date, the 14th of August, stared up from the margin. By dawn, Samuel stood in a corridor of white tile and antiseptic, waiting for news that would shatter everything. The debt had come due, and Samuel knew, with a certainty that sickened him, who had paid it. The doctor's words were clinical. A massive hemorrhagic stroke. Joseph Reeves passed before sunrise.
He was fine yesterday. I heard his voice on the phone just this week. It took 11 years to collect, but it took him.
3 days later, Samuel laid a wreath of greenery on the fresh mound of his father's grave. He returned to the cemetery alone. The shed smelled of damp wool and old wood. The shape's scent had faded. That night, at 3:14, the path stayed silent. The gate never swung open. No faceless figure emerged from the mist. The next night passed, and the next. For the first time in 11 years, Samuel slept without waiting.
It's gone. After 4,015 visits, it's gone back to wherever debts are collected. And Dad is the price.
He opened the ledger to the page where he'd marked the date of his crime. The 14th of August, 2013. His great-grandfather's words were clear. break a rule, and a debt forms. He had never asked what the debt would claim. Now he knew. And with that knowing came a new, terrible question. What rule must he write to protect the next generation from his own mistake? Samuel turned pages with urgent fingers, past rules and faded warnings, to the back of the ledger where his great-grandfather had scrawled something else.
I've read these pages 100 times. There must be something I missed. A warning about the debt.
On a page near a family tree, half hidden in the binding, he found it. The ink was silver gray with age, but the words cut clean. If you greet it, you owe it. The debt will be collected.
I greeted that thing. I called it by my father's name. That's the debt. It was never mine to pay. It was his.
Samuel's hand trembled as he traced the name Joseph in the family tree.
It waited 11 years. Why? Maybe the debt has a maturation like a loan, or maybe it savored the collection. Either way, I gave my father to it.
The shape had taken Joseph's voice, then taken Joseph himself. A perfect, terrible symmetry. Samuel closed the ledger, his decision hardening. He would not let this pass without a warning. He would write a new rule. But first, he needed to understand what the debt truly was, and whether it could ever be owed again. He lifted his gaze to the empty chair where his father used to sit during evening rounds.
I can still hear his voice in this room, not just the shape's echo, but his real laugh. I traded that for a greeting.
The apology came out as a whisper, too broken for anyone but the dead to hear.
I am sorry, Dad. I was half asleep, and I used your name. I never meant to.
Then he did the only thing he could. He opened the ledger to a fresh page and took up his father's old pen. The blank parchment stared back, waiting to receive a warning that had cost his family everything.
I won't let another groundskeeper make the same mistake. This rule will be my atonement.
He began to write. The ink bled unevenly as his hands shook, but the words came.
Rule 7. Do not greet what walks.
He paused, knowing the next part would define everything. The debt was a chain. He had to forge a link that could save his great-grandchild. He wrote, then struck through a false start. Don't talk at night. Too vague. The words wouldn't hold the weight.
No, it must be specific. Like the first 6 rules. Direct, unforgiving.
He tried. Do not greet what walks. The words echoed Rule 6, but the new rule had to mean something different. Beneath it, he penned the warning. If you have already greeted it, you owe it.
But what if someone needs to know how to pay? No, they won't want to know. They'll want to survive the not knowing.
He wrote, do not ask what it takes when the debt comes due. Then, after a long breath, he finished. You will not survive knowing.
That's it. If they read this, they'll understand. Don't greet it, and if you already did, don't ask. Just accept that something is owed.
He stared at the draft. The ink was still wet. The rule incomplete but enough. A chain link to bind the next generation. He would revise it, refine it, but the core was there. A warning born from loss. The debt was real. Samuel dipped the pen one last time and began the final draft, his hand steady with a purpose that grief had forged. The final rule read, do not greet what walks. If you have already greeted it, you owe it. Do not ask what it takes when the debt comes due. You will not survive knowing. Beneath the rule, he signed his full name, Samuel Reeves, 2024. A line drawn under a debt marked paid.
It's done. The ledger now has 7 rules. I hope it's never read, or read before it's too late.
He turned slowly to the front of the ledger, past the brittle first pages, and let his palm rest on the worn leather cover. From the pocket of his father's old coat, he withdrew a small wooden cross and set it atop the closed book. He glanced once more at the empty chair, then back at the cross. 2 fathers, both claimed by the cemetery, one by age, one by debt. The shed fell silent. No ticking clock, no wind, just the weight of a new rule sealed in ink. Outside, the cemetery waited in its accustomed twilight, the shapes of tombs patient and unreadable. The gate remained shut, and the shape did not come. It would not come again. Samuel had paid the price, and the ledger now held the receipt. With only a handful of mourners, Joseph Reeves was laid to rest in the family tomb, stone ceiling over the last of the old generation.
He taught me every rule, except the most terrible one, how to survive breaking them.
Samuel placed a wreath of woven greenery against the fresh stone, his fingers lingering on the carved letters of his father's name.
Goodbye, Dad. I'll keep the gates locked.
The gravestone read, Joseph Reeves, 1945-2024. A kind father, an unflinching groundskeeper. That evening, Samuel locked the main gate with his father's old key, the same lock that had held for 40 years.
No shape. At 3:14, just the sound of the bolt sliding home.
Darkness fell, and for the first time in over a decade, the cemetery felt merely lonely, not hunted. The debt was paid. Joseph had been claimed, and the ledger recorded the transaction in ink and blood. Samuel stood at the gate until the fog thickened, then turned toward the shed, leaving the dead to their silent peace. Samuel walked the rows, lantern low, his boots echoing on gravel paths that no longer felt like a trap.
I used to freeze at every sound. Now the silence is just silence. But I never greet it, never again.
He stopped at his father's grave, the wreath still fresh, and knelt to place a single white flower.
The cemetery's quiet now, Dad. No more shapes. Just the moss and the mist.
When he straightened, his gaze drifted to the main gate, shut tight, the padlock gleaming in the last light.
It's almost time to lock up for the night. I'll check the gate twice, just as he taught me.
His boots crunched on gravel as he made his final round, a ritual as old as the cemetery itself. He secured the gate, the bolt sliding home with a sound of permanence, then turned toward the shed.
If another debt ever comes due, I'll pay it silently. The ledger already knows my name.
The cemetery settled into its eternal twilight murmur, the gate shut and the trees holding their peace. The shed door closed with a soft thud, and the lantern's flame quieted to a steady golden bead.
Another night without footsteps. I still listen for them out of habit, but the silence is honest now.
He lifted the old leather ledger and set it gently on the table, the wooden cross still resting where he had placed it. Then he reached for the photograph, its edges soft from wear, and studied the face of the man who taught him everything except how to grieve.
He'd be proud of the new rule, I think. A Reeves never leaves the cemetery unprotected.
Samuel closed his eyes. For a moment he saw a great-grandchild turning pages of aging leather, finding Rule 7 in careful script.
They'll read the warning and maybe curse my name, but they'll know what's owed. That's enough.
The candle on the shelf flickered, drawing shadows across the ceiling. For an instant, the shed seemed full of all the Reeves men before him.
4 generations. 1 mistake. 1 debt. And now 7 rules to guard the gate.
Samuel opened his eyes, thumbed through brittle pages to the 14th of August, 2013. He touched the ink as if it might still sting. An hour before sunrise, Samuel extinguished the lantern and stepped into the pre-dawn chill. The first gray light of dawn washed over the tombs, and the world was still. The main gate stood locked, a sentinel of iron against the fading shadows. In the oldest section, the cardinal tomb's stone door was slightly ajar. For a single heartbeat, a ghost green glow pulsed from the crack, and then was gone. The light faded, and the cemetery settled back into its early morning murmur. Everything was as it had been for a century, except the ledger now held 7 rules. The shape did not walk. The debt was paid, but the door of the cardinal tomb never closed completely. The gate remained locked, but through the bars, a distant figure stood among the fog, still as stone. Then the mist thickened, and the figure was gone. The cemetery was quiet, but not asleep.